I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, your pet's ally. I hope that all is well and life is good for everybody. We've got some great questions today, so I'm going to pop over to Facebook. And so you remember, if you weren't on the last broadcast, we do have a broadcast with Angela Ardolino coming up today at 4:30 p.m. I apologize. We'll get the link for that up in just a minute. And the other thing is tomorrow at about 5 p.m. Central Time, I will be doing live on Facebook about our experience using PEMF, or pulsed electromagnetic frequency loops, to reduce anxiety and pain, and how that's worked out for both Hayo and Pepe. It's really been quite a great experience. And then let's pop over to the page for iPet's Ally. And Susan, that's fantastic news on Abner, but that's really disappointing that he's been treated for glaucoma for 2 years and he doesn't have it. And he actually has a viable retina, which is great. So wonderful. Hopefully they've gotten the lantanoprost drops available in the U.S. This is a drop that's been tested or designed for pets that have diabetes, and what they found is that it reorganized the fibers and prevented cataracts, although hopefully it can actually reverse cataracts to some degree as well. Let's see, in May, I think we got that answered. And yeah, so for water filters that are affordable, check out Berkey, because they take out everything. That's something we've been traveling with for 3.5 years now, and they do an outstanding job at taking out all of the junk. So check that one out for Susan. That may be worthwhile. They're like $300, and I think we have to change the filters every year or so. And then we had our winners for the VF Omega 3. And this is kind of crazy, Kathy, that they want to sedate Daisy and flush her anal glands under anesthesia. So most of the time they're filling up because of allergies to some degree. So if it's only been 3 times a year, I wouldn't worry about it. And this is something, I think all you have to express Hayo's anal glands maybe twice or 3 times this year. We had some crap in the air we were dealing with that was kind of creating allergy issues for everybody. So see about that. I mean, I usually do her anal glands when we're doing a bath, but she's also tiny. Yeah, I mean, generally they don't get impacted, but do get it checked out. I think, and it's so nice to see you with both the girls. That's such a lovely photo. So, do make sure they're not impacted, but if she's only scooting for 10 seconds, most mornings it may be that she's slightly irritated, and then she goes to the bathroom, passes a bowel movement, and that may be taking care of the anal glands too. You can do warm compresses, but the other thing is you can use quercetin if they're truly irritated. Let's see, you got that covered. So, spirit. So we had salmon for 4 days, and on the third day of turkey, I'm adding 1 tablespoon of smashed beans to each meal. Some stools are nicely formed, but some are formed in mushy. Heartworm pill caused a day or so of mush. Yeah, this has been an interesting thing. So it turns out for Spirit that his stool quality is better with beans. And so the question we were trying to answer is, does it make a difference which protein that May is using for Spirit? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, May, but I think that what you're saying is that the salmon for 4 days, the stool was okay. Or is it the stools were kind of formed a bit mushy at times, regardless of whether you were using beans or not? So I think what you feed consistently that does not create problems is the bison, and so frankly I would do that. Add in some beans with that as well to keep things kind of calm, and then go from there. So and I'll so so drop a comment in here if something else is the case, because we don't want to leave you hanging before you head out of town. So if I didn't answer that correctly, drop it back in the drop a comment back in there, please. Let's see. So we've got this question from Karen, and yeah, beans help it all. So May, what I would do is, since you're going out of town, do bison and a little bit of beans to help keep things all happy, hunky-dory. And then when you get back, try a batch of salmon. And yeah, chia seemed to help too. So try the bison and beans for a while you're out of town. And then if you need to, the babysitter needs to, she can add a little bit of chia in. And beans only seem to be helping for a few days, and then things fall apart. Okay. Been fairly mushy for days, on beans for over a week. Then let's try this. Try rotating your fiber sources. So one day do bean, one day do chia, one day do turnips, because I think all of those things were helpful. And that's, yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. If you can rotate between them, hopefully it'll prevent you from having bad days in between. And I'm kind of running out of options to help you, although maybe let me think on that a while. I'm not sure what else to help you with, but I would try rotating the fiber sources and then see if that helps keep things more consistent. So beans, chia, turnip, and take it from there. So Karen's asking about eliminating beef and chicken, and should she also eliminate holistic total body support? I would, because it is beef based, and what you need to do is take everything out of the diet that is beef based, so you've got a clean answer. Yeah, and then Pam, you can go ahead and use pumpkin since that was helpful before. So pork is good as far as digestion, and then what you will need to do, Karen, is to find 2 other proteins that do work, so you can make up ideally a rotation and elimination diet. And if pork, I didn't realize that Great Lakes has a pork gelatin, so I would use that in place of the collagen. Because unfortunately, like you say, the collagens are all beef based. And as far as is there a fish based collagen, I think that's something you'll have to do some digging on. The grains all coming back. Yeah, okay, so pork, turkey, and pollock. So you can use those, okay. So you may just I would go with just skip the collagen for now, and then do use the gelatin, because that will help. And what I would do is just start with, it probably says that a tablespoon of gelatin is the serving. I would start with something like a quarter of a teaspoon and kind of work your way up. I'm sorry, I can't remember how much your pup weighs. And And then all grains came back in red. She's done seemingly well on teff and sorghum, which are not on the list. This is where did any of the legumes come back as red or no? Plantain is possible if banana is not highlighted red, and ideally you'd find another carbohydrate source. So if you can't, then 25 pounds. So yeah, so I think probably a teaspoon of gelatin a day would be the total dose, but kind of approach it slowly so that you don't end up with a nasty surprise. And if beans are all green, then I would start with something like lentils and test that, make sure that she can digest it well. And then you can also look at black-eyed peas and got it, yeah. So black-eyed peas, and then what's the other one that's easier? Like a navy bean or lima bean. Those are relatively easier to digest. So I would try those, but test again. So you've been testing for pork, and that worked well, but test out the legumes and start with lentils first. They are the most adjustable. And for now, I would leave out any new supplements because you want to be super clear about what the food is not doing or is doing for your pup. And like Kathy says below, she had to pull out HDBS because it just created problems back for her. So, and Karen, your question about taurine is a good one. Theoretically, dogs don't need additional taurine, but what happened with the grain-free diets was really interesting. And again, grain-free commercial diets are going to be 65 to 70% carbohydrate, but in this case, the carbohydrate is beans. And so because you're feeding a more balanced diet, as far as like 30-30-30 split between protein, fat, and carbohydrate, this should not be an issue. But if your pet has heart disease, I would consider adding some in and if she's 25 pounds, somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 milligrams. And as far as the vitamin, I would use the 2 a day that Kathy mentions. Let me pop over to the page for you so I can show you that. And I'm sorry I don't have the dosing right with me, but Hannah and Paul can get that for you. But I think for 25 pounds, it will be something like a half a tablet today. And Karen, I think that there's a lot in the news about this, but I think it has been way overblown because, again, no telling how those legumes were processed. And again, the dose is so high, if you will, that even though they may have been prepared properly, they're going to have too many lectins in there and create problems. And also the other consideration as sort of research goes on is that it may simply be it's just way too much fiber, and so that's absorbing or preventing absorption of taurine into the diet. So the way the Crock-Pot diet is set up, I don't think this will be an issue. And Pam, so a tablespoon of chia to like a quarter cup of water. So you want it to kind of absorb and that sort of stuff. So when should you start the 2 a day, Karen? You should start it when you stop the holistic total body support. If it's a week, it really is okay. And so the idea with the rotation and elimination diet is that you're going to do this for somewhere between 45 and 60 days. And then once you're sure that, okay, everything is really, really good and no more issues and you're starting to see improvement in SLE symptoms, then start introducing things and testing them. And so beef would be one of the first things you would test. And what that means is that you would give somewhere in the neighborhood of about a half a tablespoon per meal for 3 meals, and just like you've been doing with the pork, and then wait a total of 72 hours to make sure that it has not created a problem. And if that's okay, then try feeding a beef a little bit more frequently. If it's a no, then no, you won't be able to reuse holistic total body support. And there are some other ones we can look at more long term, but this product has been the easiest to use because of doses. Carb sources, you can try plantains if they are not red, but again, because you're going to be using beans, I think you're in good shape. And there's a lot of benefits to beans as far as being a slow carb and preventing sugar spikes, which will be helpful for the SLE too. So I hope that makes sense. Let me make sure. So again, you're going to test beef after you have completed the 45 to 60 days of the rotation diet. So sometimes we get lucky and the sensitivity clears and you can go back to using that on a regular basis, but just not all the time. But as Kathy told you, her pups just cannot tolerate beef at all. She tried to reintroduce it, and it was a great problem. And with the plantains, I would get them fairly ripe because they are high in resistant starch when they are uncooked, and that can create some unhappy tummy issues. Glad that makes sure. And then again, see, the thing with plantains is that they are lower in sugar than bananas, but they are going to be pretty high relative to beans. So I would, check it out with beans, see what's up, and then go from there. And then try reintroducing grains once you've gone through that whole rotation diet. Let's see. Yeah, it's complicated, and I can't remember. Karen, I'd need to see the report, to be honest with you, to be able to speak to that a bit better. So, Mr. Willie, poor buddy. Yeah, the tick is interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he's maybe getting a little Lyme or something going on there, if it's shifting legs. So check that out. It may not be unreasonable. I can't remember, Jamie, if you're using doxycycline or not. I don't think you are, but that may not be unreasonable. And if his lesions are getting worse and super itchy, I'm not sure if you're... Yeah, that is looking worse. I would, try using quercetin at a fairly high dose. And so for Willie, that might be 400 milligrams up to 4 times a day, because that's looking pretty rough. And it sounds like he's uncomfortable too, which is not good. If he's super itchy, that's just miserable. So ozone, I think, will be quite helpful. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, you can look at fecal transplant and see if that helps, just because it's going to help get the good guys back in there. It's going to be interesting to see how that works with the palladia, though. That would be my concern. I'm not sure how that will affect the gut microbiome. So thank goodness for Mr. Willie, who's still happy, and thank goodness for you, who's still plodding through and finding other options for him. And I think that is the list of stuff on Facebook. And Susan, no, I think small dogs do. I mean, in my experience, glaucoma was more common in small breed dogs. And it's weird. There's kind of a genetic issue with it, and then also the classic one is closed angle obstruction, meaning that in the eye itself. So if we think about it, so here's the iris, and then here's sort of the cornea coming out here. There's an angle down here where intraocular fluid is supposed to drain to maintain pressure equilibrium. And so sometimes that gets plugged up for one reason or another. So yeah, that's really disappointing, though, that everything that you'd been treating for so long, and then boom. No, really, he doesn't have glaucoma. So glad everything is back to on course. So that's what I've got for you this week. We'll get you the link for my conversation with Angela today, and then we will have another conversation tomorrow about the PEMF loops, and really I have Bettina to thank for those, for telling us about her experience. And I think everybody really that's tried them has had great success with it. So until next week, give everybody a big hug, and we'll talk soon.